No, I think. Oh, there, it'll pop up. And on this, it'll just be a minute. We got a new technique so we can hopefully see the comments as they come up. We missed them all last time. Every one of them. I think you got one there already. Comment.
No, it's just saying that that's live here now, so.
Yeah, there you go.
So I just turned the volume down right on this thing, so you don't have any back feed. And then I guess once there's a comment, then it should pop up live chat or
I would think so. Let's try it right now, quick. While we're waiting.
Yeah, if you're in already, drop a comment in, and we'll see how
that one come up.
The chat comes.
That's they're hard to see. Who's that? BP. He's from Saskatchewan.
Hey, how's the weather in Saskatchewan?
Need to go. Live right there.
Yeah, there's definitely lag set up here, eh? So we got like 15 seconds of lag time. Maybe not quite 15 seconds.
Okay, there, yeah, it popped up on your phone.
Popped up
here.
there. Nothing on here. We'll just sign in, we'll see if it pops up that way. Bear with us while we get our technology going here.
I'm sure it'll show up on this one for now anyways. Yeah, the noobs are struggling. Beautiful day today. Oh, you were locked up in the house or what? I lost him.
Tell me my password is wrong. Oh, I got my own email address
Oh,
wrong.
you can use this anyways. Glenn's already on there. I thought Glenn was grooming today.
Glenn.
I figure, yeah.
The hell of a guy, that Glenn, eh?
Yeah. Well, everybody. Everybody's excited. This one doesn't have the wide frame like your phone does, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's one thing that is nice about the phone is you don't have to like
Get right in there.
you don't have to be question our sexuality when we're done.
Exactly. Well, it's yeah. It's not about looking at us. It's about getting the information. So
Yeah.
and having a cigar and a drink at
That's
the end of a long week.
I was just telling Robin before we got started here. That's why we're having such trouble with technology. If anybody watched over the last 2 days, I've been running test cycles out, and I tried my laptop. I tried a tablet. I tried all this stuff to get to work in here. Very, very periphery, I guess, of the extent of our Wi-Fi, and I just was having technological issues, and so the message I think that we're going to share tonight was so important that we wanted to make sure that the audio quality and the video quality was there, so if anybody comes back to watch it, they're not going to be lost with shitty quality video, right? So that may come with a little bit of sacrifice of missing the odd comment here or there, but the beautiful thing is last time we didn't know where the comments went to. Now we know where they're at, so if we do miss anything, we can go in afterwards and see where everything's at, let you know. And do you want to answer this one now from the last time or what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Peace Roots 1. I'm not sure whose handle that is, but in our last video we had on passive income, dropped an absolute bomb of a question on us because we're out there preaching. And so this person, I'm not sure who it is, but they come up with what are one or two things that each of us are aspiring to or working on our farms that will move us to improve sustainability and financial independence. So I mean that's a pretty busy question, eh? Like there's a lot lot going on there.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, on me specifically on mine, when we 7 years ago decided to market the grain locally, or as locally as we could, as opposed to just load it up and ship it for export, that was that pretty much took all of my time for the last few years. I actually quit working out to focus on that. Now that we didn't bring that up because that actually isn't passive income. That became another job, but that has absorbed all of my time.
Definitely from a sustainability perspective, though, that's probably done wonders for your farm itself, right?
Well, yeah, it did for sure. Absolutely. We were able to value add it a little bit, and not only that, when you look at, I mean, we're going to talk about this quite a bit tonight, but carbon footprint of things. It never made sense for me to ship this for export or even domestic use around the country and then have it processed and shipped back. So at our feed mills around here, feed stores, co-ops, and PV marts, all that feed that you buy, that's got a large carbon footprint behind it. When you can just source the grain locally, if someone's willing to do the work and I guess and market it that way.
100%. And for us here, I mean, we're zero generation farmers, right? Carmen and I both came from farm families, but we're not. We didn't have an established farm that we set up on. We're, long story, but stuff in the old country didn't work out very well. Something about crazy cows. And anyways, there wasn't a lot left in the old farming industry, and so I came here. Carmen obviously comes from a local farming family here, and we just decided to set up from ground zero, essentially. And so, what are we looking at for sustainability and financial freedom? I think we're perhaps going in a bit of an opposite direction. We're putting a lot of money and perhaps a portion of our retirement into investing in things for our kids' future in ag and future in farming. Because we recognize coming into it early on that, wow, this is, it's kind of the opposite of an incentive, right? For young people, we're not even that young, right? We're middle aged, but for getting into agriculture from the ground up is kind of an insurmountable task. And so we thought, okay, well, we're set up financially well enough that we could sink a bunch of money into this and still be able to live comfortably, but leave something for our kids that they're not having to essentially be drowning the minute they start. Then maybe that's a better option for us, right? So sacrifice a little bit ourselves for the future of the kids. Right? There we go.
Maybe we'll get it figured out. We might have to just go back to what we did the other night, just go right to the phones, and now that we understand the way this works, we might be able to keep up a
Go
little
to
bit.
the phones. That's funny. So I was at the thrift store the other day, and I seen an old phone, like you pick it up and you talk on the phone
Like a rotary?
with a rotary on it, and I thought, man, that's the coolest thing. But then I looked at it, and it was actually like the make-believe rotary with the push buttons. It was just meant to look. I was pretty close to buying it. I could hardly justify it.
We're gonna have to get that
$30
for the set here.
It might be an accessory or whatever. So yeah. So anyways, we got a couple folks on. What do you get, half a dozen there or something like that?
Yeah.
A couple on here.
There's enough to start for sure.
What are we talking about this evening?
Well, yeah. So we made we were wondering what a good topic was going to be, and the more I think about this, usually the madder I get, and it's basically how poor. So yeah, I was talking to Stan about this last week, and how poor the decisions we all make on shopping. And it's not just a financially bad decision. It's bad for the environment. It's bad for the livestock. It's bad for the economy. There's no, and you see it when you're walking up and down anything. It doesn't have to be a supermarket. It can be a clothing store, any store. You just watch the absolute excess that we feel that we should have, and people rifling shit. Just, you can't, no one can leave without just carts full of everything. So I thought, well, let's at least talk about this from a livestock, climate change and an economic standpoint. At least if we can talk about the food part first. both Stan and I are fairly passionate about.
I gotta dig and find something here real quick in the old wallet, just to prove a point. For anybody that's wondering, yeah, everything we're gonna talk about, I mean, we're gonna be passionate, and at some point that may even come off as frustration or even anger, but I do this from a point of humility in saying that, you know, I got the Costco card. I recognize that over the years, I've contributed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, we're not here to preach and be holier than thou and try and stand up on a pedestal. Just saying that this is what we see, and you've got some notes, I've got some notes, and I honestly believe that when we're done here this evening, I don't know if it'll be midnight or what time it's gonna go till, but I truly do believe that right here at this table, we're gonna solve world hunger. I really believe that.
Well, yeah, at least give the tools to do it, right? I mean, we seem as humanity foolish and not to see, you know, the forest for the trees. So I don't think it's going to sink in for any of us. But you know, the reality is there. And yeah, we write down some stuff. We take some notes. I got my paper. Stan's got his book. You know, this is all stuff you can see with your eyes if you're just willing to look. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I've got 3-4 pages, but in researching for this video, I must have looked at tens of thousands of pages on the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I had to
sorting the wheat from the chaff, right?
Oh, I had to regulate how much time I spent because you just ran out of fingernails to chew, being so frustrated.
You go down a rabbit hole and it's kind of crazy to see, but everything I pulled in, I went to, you know, World Economic Forum, United Nations, like established reputable sources, so that there's none of this, you know, skewed numbers or things like that, right? So, and when we get to the actual hard data, it's scary. Like when you think about where we're at, and this is not, I don't think to be an alarmist or anything like that, but I will say, if you take anything away from today's video, or there's a moment where it's like, you know, the old eyebrows come up and you're like, I certainly didn't know that. You can guarantee that there's a lot of other folks that didn't know that either. And I think that the biggest advantage that you could do is take this and share the video, right? Like, you know, we're gonna broadcast to, I don't know how many people. The last one went to 400 or 500, something like that, right? This is an important message. This has gotta grow some legs if we're actually gonna make a difference, right?
Absolutely.
And I know the folks that watch us typically are fairly well aligned with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's like a Lamborghini, right? Why don't Lamborghini advertise on television? Because the people that buy Lamborghinis don't watch TV.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have to recognize the fact that the people we're talking to may not be necessarily the people we need to hear this, but we also know that the amount of reach that you folks have at home can get this message to where it needs to go, right? So, what else we got on the books here today?
What do we got on the books? Well, we got Cubans, I think.
Cuban
we got
cigars.
some little cigars. We got this was actually dropped off from the Walkers.
Thank you very much
They
for
watched. They were actually picking up some feed the other day, and they noticed we were smoking these last time. So we'll probably get into those at some point.
Right uptown, yeah.
And
we're gonna have a few drinks this evening.
yeah, we're gonna. What are we gonna? We're gonna drink.
What's in the well? It's over here.
Oh yeah, we're gonna drink our Scotch, the green one, the 12-year Scotch. Actually, I may as well grab
You're
it.
just gonna grab it.
Yeah, we may as well start it. So,
Now would be the time to get it out there for YouTube. Please drink responsibly. Do
yeah, I don't know how to open it.
you need a knife?
No,
No? Sure?
no, I got
I
it.
just sharpened this today.
I'll cut myself. There you go. You can open it then. And yeah, that's all we got. We got Stan's heirloom ashtray.
Yeah, did you bring a talking point today at all?
I brought some sunglasses for the kids. for Stan's kids. Maybe Stan will steal a pair. Those are actually branded.
I gotta open a pair of these and see, because these are talked about the world over, right?
They got the thing on there. You won't be able to see it probably.
Like
But,
the Bloom logo?
The Bloom logo, yeah.
Oh man, that's sharp.
We had those for the fair last year, and it got rained out. And last year we were in the field so early that we didn't go anyways. So now we got 200 pairs of sunglasses. This is another reason why I wear them all the time.
Huh, interesting.
So
So this is corked now, but I guess I gotta ask the question: what does the crowd think? What's the proper way to drink Scotch? I mean, that's as divisive as religion and politics, if anywhere you go, right?
yeah, well, it's rare to find an actual Scotch drinker.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, most people are just like,
No, eh?
no, thank you.
I remember being, what would I be? I'd be 17 or 18 years old. It was right before I came to Canada. I was working for a guy named Robert Baird on a little farm. Well, it's not a little farm, it was a big dairy farm actually in England. And I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd ride my bicycle.
Straight, he
From-
says.
For a straight.
Who's
yeah.
that? I think that's Justin. Yeah, Eric, it popped up here.
There, Justin Walker,
So-
drink it straight. All
And
right.
I missed
So
Jeremy. Sorry, Jeremy, I missed it.
There you know. So, anyway, so there we were. It's Wampool Farm outside the little village of Kirkbride. I'd ride my bicycle there every morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, milk these cows. And then one day I broke the news to the old boy, Robert, that I'm sayonara. I'm getting a one-way plane ticket to Canada. And I think the old boy, you know, for as much of a hard ass as he was a little bit disappointed, right? And so he had 3 bottles of Arthur Bell's
Okay.
Scotch whiskey, right? And that's all we drink in the Northern England. Not all of it, but as far as Scotch, that's the go-to, right? And so we put 2.5 of those things to bed. Keep in mind, I'm 17 or 18 years old. I'm pretty youthful, like 160 pounds soaking wet. Like I'm gonna need more than a dry piece of toast to suck up this bottle of whiskey. And I got there on a bicycle. So I get up, I get my bike. I was gonna go home, right? So I get my bike and I swing my leg over and I just go straight over the other side. And I'm laying there in the barnyard, just splayed out bicycle, just a wet mess, right? And then my old man actually pulled up in his car. He come on a rescue mission. We chucked my bike in the back, and we take this ride back to Abbeytown, which is the village we lived at, which is like 7 miles from Kirkbride, right? But it's 7 miles of like Northern England country roads, right? So every road is like this wide, and it just does this, right? And I gotta, whatever my share was of 2.5 bottles of whiskey, right? Probably not very much, but I mean, it was enough. And I'm looking at my dad, and I'm looking at, out the window, and I'm seeing these hedgerows go by, and my face is turning the color of this bottle, right? And it's just bad. And I'm like, you gotta stop the car. And the old boy said, I'm not stopping. Oh, you gotta stop the car. I'm not stopping. Oh, I'm gonna throw up. Not in my car, you're not. And the door comes open, and out we go, and the rest is kind of history, right? So that was
Good send off.
that was how I got broken in to Scotch. But yeah, it's kind of a divisive topic amongst Scotch drinkers. Back home, we drink a Scotch on ice with a little bit of lemon, and so actually I should grab some ice. 'Cause I'm gonna have ice. I don't know if you want ice or not.
No, I don't. I'm not gonna do it.
You're a purist?
I was told not to do it. I was told you were supposed to drink it straight, and then you gotta take, there's quite a process for the first sip, I guess.
Yeah,
So how you basically numb your entire face with it so you can continue drinking the rest of it. But, actually, no, you got the, nah,
So
better not.
these are custom ice cubes that I make right here on the farm. You can't get these anywhere else. It's a very technical process. Basically, I take an 18-pack egg carton and I fill it full of water and I chuck it outside in the cold.
Alright, there we go.
But yeah, so I'm not a Puritan by any means. I like a little bit of ice, and there's a couple of things you need to consider when you're drinking Scotch. Are you drinking Scotch for enjoyment, or are you drinking Scotch for the experience? So if you're drinking it for the enjoyment, then you're going to drink it however you enjoy it, and that may be with some ice. That may be with, I'm just going to set this aside real quick. That may be with a touch of water. That may be with some mix. I'm not going to go so far as to go that way. But then if you're drinking it for experience or even to appreciate the whiskey, then by all means, you shouldn't alter it. So this here is my speaking point that I brought for this evening. This little, it's not actually the jug, but it's what's contained inside. And this is water that was collected from, I'm just going to put just a little bit in. This water was collected from the Athabasca Glacier and actually fell as snow 10,000 years ago and is now melting off the face of that glacier. So since we're going to talk about the environment today, I thought, well, that might be kind of interesting. I've had that bottle frozen in the freezer for quite some time, and
that's a high dollar drink now.
Now would be the time.
Cheap Scotch and super old water.
Well, is there really such a thing as cheap Scotch? Like,
I know there's expensive Scotch.
Well, there's really expensive Scotch, but
So
even
that
the
wasn't-
cheap stuff is pretty out there, right?
That was nowhere near.
So when we eventually, when that thing goes to bed, I've got another one in reserve. It's Lafroy, is what it's called. It's from the Isle of Islay in the Northern Highlands, and it's the most peaty, flavorful Scotch you can get. It's actually endorsed by Prince Charles, Prince of Wales.
Oh, okay.
It's his favorite drink, actually.
Wow, that means a lot to me.
And well, yeah. Was that big weird gas?
Yeah, who?
But no, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I actually had a professor at university that used to drink a bottle of that stuff every day. And
Jesus.
so I mean, you got to be pretty committed to do that. Anyways, so.
Absolutely, that is friggin' crazy.
Yeah. How many folks we got on? Not that many this evening.
No.
So.
Well, I think they'll pile on after.
Well, should we blast some folks with some numbers or what?
Absolutely. We're gonna start with just garbage facts.
Garbage facts. Well, I don't know.
Like plastic garbage facts.
Well, okay. So I put this question out on our community page. What was that? Like 3-4 days ago. How many tons of plastic do you think accompany our food waste when it hits the landfill? So we already know that like there's a massive amount of food waste hits the landfill, right?
Jeremy says everybody's following the convoy.
Everybody's following the convoy. Okay, well that's fine because I mean this is going to be uploaded and
Absolutely.
it'll be here tomorrow.
And
for
I'm not
everybody to see.
following the convoy. I needed something to do this evening. And
Yeah.
to come talk about fucking waste is.
Keep in mind though, I mean that's not necessary. We're not doing this because we don't support the truckers, right? Like, that's-
No.
My father-in-law, he's a trucker. My brother-in-law drives truck. You own a truck,
I myself drove truck for a little while.
so
Yeah, no, we can
you know,
definitely.
right or wrong, agree with them or disagree with them. At the end of the day, they're standing up for what they feel is right, and that's pretty damn admirable in my mind.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So how much plastic hits the landfill with food waste?
And I thought 168,000 tons, I thought there'd be no way we throw that much away.
So I threw some BS numbers out there. I don't even know if 168,000 tons was one of them.
It was, because I picked it, and I was like, that's crazy. It can't be that much.
Drum roll. 1.9 million tons of plastic goes in the landfill as a result of food waste every year.
That's too many.
That's
Too many tons.
an insurmountable amount, right? This is in Canada. Like we're not talking globally. This is in Canada.
That is
But we
just like-
can't even go to the McDonald's and get a plastic straw, you know? I've all but given up on McDonald's actually now because of that. I go to the Burger King now because it's the last place you can get a plastic straw, but. Anyways, to me, a lot of what we're gonna talk about is getting people in a mindset that they, I guess, regain their accountability for where their food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I truly believe this, that, our current, what we have is the establishment now is founded in a system of dependence, right? We've grown very, very comfortable with other people providing for us. And I think if we come back to, understanding that we can make choices and we can make decisions ourselves and we can be accountable for them, we can be free and autonomous people, but at the same time, that means we need to do a little bit of the work ourselves. I think we'll be in a much better place, right? So,
Absolutely.
when you buy grain, not that you buy grain, you grow grain, but you buy anything for your farm, how many people are in the middle of it? Like between you and the actual item.
Yeah, it's something I never thought of, right? We deal with basically who brokers what we need, and that's, you put really no thought into where it comes from, as long as you can get it, but there's a lot,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think it would be exhausting to know those numbers, and to know those figures, and to even know those channels.
So the average purchasing arrangement right now in Canada, the average purchasing arrangement between the supplier and the end purchaser is a minimum of 3 people. Right? 3 sets of hands got to touch everything between me just getting what I want. Right? Now that's a lot. Right? Considering that's the minimum. There's a lot of setups where you go to the Napa and imagine you order parts from somewhere across the country.
Yeah. Yeah, I would,
6, 7, 8 pairs of hands, right?
I would think something like 3 is not even that bad, 1 or 2 is better, but.
Yeah, you understand that people gotta eat, yeah.
That is actually one thing, when I was starting to do some research on this, like most of the stuff I did was based like on the livestock side of what we produce, what we consume, and the effect of what we consume is having on the livestock. I was actually surprised, a lot of it wasn't even as bad as I thought. One of the numbers that really shook me is, we're shipping cattle, if you're in the Peace Country, upwards of 900 kilometers one way live to then be filled into a feedlot. And I thought, I wonder what are the numbers on how much dead loss and stuff. And they say 99% of the loads
So
make it.
that leaves here and goes to where? That goes to Brooks or something?
Yeah, it goes down to Feedlot Alley, so High River.
High River.
This is about a 500 square kilometer area there. I think they have about 2.5 million head of cattle in that. So everything leaves out, everywhere, from what I understood, and it ends up down there. That's where they finish them off, and then they end up in JBS plant, Cargill's plant.
Yeah.
But I was quite surprised that they claim, and they did these studies. They put the wind sensors in the trucks, and the thermometers and humidity, and they said that, it's actually not that. You just think, like, could you imagine being shoved in there, 70 animals, or 100 if they're calves, and rocking and rolling all the way down to High River? That would be brutal. But
Yeah, you would think that'd be brutal.
the one thing that kind of threw me off, so they said, I did write it down because it actually was something I wanted to remember. So it was, yeah, so it was 99%, over 99% of the loads that are shipped down to Feedlot Alley are basically, there's no death and there's really no injury. But they said that same study, 80% of the cows had bruising, like definite bruising. 18% of that was severe. So while these things, I guess they're not dying, they're severely beaten, right? Like that, to me, that's just too many. And it's too many because it's a senseless thing to do. Like there's no way we should be shipping cattle across the province just to finish it off for the last few days, to ship it another 200 kilometers north to be killed.
So educate me here, because everything we grow on the farm has or I should say everything that leaves the farm has really low mileage on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? and we pride ourselves on that. But, so, if I sell a cow and it goes, or not, well, yeah, sell a cow and it goes to Feedlot Alley, and it gets the shit kicked out of it on the way there, and it's all bruised up, does it stay there for an extended period of time until that's recovered from that? Or does it hit the slaughterhouse and all that bruised meat just gets discarded?
Yeah, so cull cows, I believe, end up right at the slaughterhouse, and they call them dark cutters when they're all beat to shit.
Yeah.
I'm not a cattle guy myself, everybody knows that watches this. But all the guys that I talk to, all the producers, I mean, it's just, it's just another way to dock the producer,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's really not his fault, but it is what it is. General calves, steers, stuff like that are gonna be finished for meat, they end up right down into the feedlot. The feedlots are geared, high feed rations for maximum growth, minimum days, to get them to a finished weight, because at the packing plant, they want them all the same size. So you're gonna ship that 900 kilometers down, it's gonna live in, it's just tremendous confinement, right? Like this
Yeah,
stuff is all
yeah.
designed so animals can't move.
Yeah.
No, and I know you talk a lot about chickens, because you do a lot of research in that. Cattle, I would say undeniably, as a commercial animal raised in Canada, probably have the best life. I mean sheep and goats and other things, yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
but cattle, and it's no screaming hell, like,
Yeah.
but they probably have it the best.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, absolutely.
So they're shipped down, they're finished off for, whatever days, right? If they're smaller, the number cattle producers know, so do feedlot guys. Then when they're ready, they're shipped back up another 200 some kilometers, ground up. Now, if they're gonna make it into the fast food chain, they're actually, I didn't even realize this, that meat is shipped out east to be mixed for A&W's rations, for McDonald's,
To grind it and
right?
seasoning.
And then it's shipped back.
Huh.
So that burger that ends up, and McDonald's is great for this, and I applaud them for it, because
Yeah.
A&W goes the other way with kind of shitting on everything.
Sure.
We use local meat, right? Well, that's all well and great, it probably is local meat, but that thing's been across the country 2 or 3 times before you eat it.
It's funny, because just 2 days ago, I was thinking about that exact, I didn't even know you were gonna bring that up, but I was thinking that same thing, like, if I go to McDonald's and I buy a hamburger, where's the meat come from? Okay, so maybe it is local farms, sure, it's done it out, but I'm buying a hamburger in January, it's got lettuce, tomato, onions, all this stuff. You're not getting that from Dawson Creek.
No.
It's putting on some serious, so even something as simple as just a hamburger has an impact on the environment, the economy, livestock well-being, everything we're talking about tonight, right? So,
And it's something that we, even like Stan said earlier, like we're both, we're victims of it too, there's so much coming at you, and unless you sit down and, find some like-minded people to talk to this about, who actually care about it, it's never gonna resonate, like, you're just gonna be like, well, whatever, McDonald's uses local meat. And that's fine that they do, but that local meat has seen more of the country than most of us ever will, it's been,
yeah,
get there.
if your hamburger's got more stamps on its passport than you do, then that's a problem, right?
it's totally crazy,
I know.
totally.
Like us, we're primarily chicken and lamb, and so we have a lot of sheep, and that's one thing we see, the lamb industry coming out of New Zealand, they'll ship, well, I don't think so much anymore, but live lamb on a boat, and it's not uncommon to see 5,000 lambs arrive in port, right? So that to me is that's a huge miss, right? That's a huge miss on the animal welfare side. And then later on, I got some numbers about actually what we do consume and what never hits the plate, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to talk about tonight is from a producer standpoint, sure, there's some vegetables that go to landfill, but the animal that hits the landfill, that's not to be taken lightly, right?
No,
There's a life attached to that, and whether you agree with PETA and Greenpeace and organizations like that or not, the reality is you're giving them ammunition when.
Yeah, absolutely.
And rightly so in many cases. if you're, you know, accounting very poorly for wasted meat, right? And so, I just, the one thing that resonated with me the other day was a saying I heard about problem solving. So we can agree that waste in the food industry is a problem, and I think everybody in the food industry recognizes that it's a problem. But I also think, so what resonated with me was a statement that, you know, in engineering, the biggest problem that engineers have is trying to engineer out a solution for something that should no longer even exist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So here we are, we're gonna try and solve all the problems with the food network. Now, the food network should probably exist, but it should not exist in the way it currently does. Right? I shouldn't be shipping avocado from Arizona, shouldn't be shipping 35,000 tons of lettuce per month to northern Canada from Yuma, only for 45% of it to end up in the garbage.
That's unbelievable.
Right? Like it's just not, you know, it's crazy. So ultimately the end goal for me, if I could have my way tomorrow, maybe it's a good thing I don't have my way tomorrow, but tear down the walls on the current food network that we have. And, you know, if I could just basically wave a magic wand and say this is how it should be, just tear down the current food network system that we have, recognizing that there's certain products that still need to be transported, right? There's still a need for a certain amount of off-season vegetables to remote communities, things like that. You know, there's only so much that we can do when it's wintertime, 6 months a year. We still need vegetables. But can we work on food preservation a little bit better? Can we work on shipping those vegetables from places in our own country that have warmer climes? Can we work on greenhouse projects, things like that? And not just relying on things coming from Colombia, Ecuador, you know, the lower United States, and fix that issue. Because to just continue to truck things, knowing that 45%, we got to truck so much of it here, knowing that 45% of it is going to go in garbage.
Yeah.
It's never even gonna, well, you know, some of it'll hit the fridge, but we're all guilty of that. I showed you the Costco card, right? How many bags of romaine lettuce do we buy at Costco? It sits in the crisper for 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I go out and I feed it to my chickens,
Mm-hmm.
right? Thankfully, they don't complain about it. They're quite grateful for it. But
That was a big thing we realized. I don't know. I think it was last year we were talking to another couple that was getting feed, and they had canceled their Costco card. And I mean, we still have ours, but Corey started that Farm Bound. It's a local thing here or whatever.
That's a really interesting concept.
So she's done that for quite a while. She got off of it when the I don't know, the pandemic hit. Couldn't, you know, we just stopped that for a little while. I think they quit delivering to Grand Prairie. Now you got to go to Dawson to get it.
Yeah.
I didn't really look too much into it. From what I understand, it's basically as low as you can get. But I asked her. I said, "Is it much different? Is it more expensive?" She said, "Well, no, not really. So we don't buy the meat off of there. We have our own meat." She gets some heavy cream from there. Lots of fruits and vegetables. That stuff is sourced as local as possible. Lots of it comes right out of BC, Kelowna. It's not a whole bunch of extra money. You put your order on the internet. She drives up to Dawson every Friday. She's got a few friends of hers in the area that want to do it. So now they only, instead of going every Friday, they go every third Friday, and they pick each other's boxes up. Yeah. And the produce is just way better. We found with Costco, I mean, you know, everybody's doing it. You're carting out a flat of strawberries, and you're thinking, you got the world by the balls, and yeah, you know all that's going in the garbage. It doesn't even taste good, the first one.
You run out there with a pound of strawberries,
right?
You know right off the get-go that 30% of them are garbage before they even leave the store.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be good in your fridge for 2.5 days, and then the 50% of them are going to be garbage. And then you're going to left with these little red wilty things that, but you've already looked at the shitty ones, and you're not going to want to eat the rest of them anyways, right? And it's an interesting concept when you think about, okay, well, so I grew up in the UK, and in the UK things are, I mean, we have what we would class here as a bar fridge. That's your home fridge. Like it carries 2-3 days worth of groceries, right? And so your big shop is like a weekly shop. It's not like you go to Costco and you're good for 3-4 weeks here, right? And I think everybody here largely has this concept that I can run to Costco, or I can run to the Walmart, the Superstore, wherever it is, and get this massive shop done, and I'm going to save all this money.
Yeah.
but then when you throw 33% of it in the garbage, did you save anything?
I know that's.
Or if you just bought for a week, you just bought what you need, and you didn't throw any of it away,
Mhm.
how does that affect your, I mean, that's great for the economy, that's great for your own pocketbook.
Yeah.
There's a lot less waste, so there's a lot, you know, what's going to the landfill is significantly decreased.
And I think most people, I think, cause I ask everybody, I mean, I'm not shy around this topic, and most people, they understand that, but it's so hard for people to break free from it, right? I mean, you know, especially those of us that live rural, I mean, you're gonna go to town once, you don't wanna go to town every day, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, the whole entire business for consumers is based around getting them this product as cheap as possible, and effectively that's what you're getting. You're getting something honestly that it isn't really worth much more than something fit for the dump.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally 5 days from the landfill.
It's just
Everything that hits the grocery store in the way of produce is 5 days from the landfill. Same with meat. That's what, to be frank, it pisses me off with meat.
Mhm.
Fresh meat gets cut and put on a styrofoam tray in the butcher section, deli section of the grocery store, has a 5-day shelf life. Why? Because the consumer needs to see that fresh cut of appetizing, blood dripping off of it, juicy looking steak.
Mhm.
You know, it's the aesthetics of it. It's our own vanity that brings us there. Whereas if I just went to a local producer and I had a half a beef cut wrapped and frozen, it's gonna stay in my freezer just fine for an entire year,
Yeah.
right?
So that the beef, that's where I spent the most of this, and I think I'm gonna just rattle off a little bit of it right here. So beef right off the bat, I know for some reason it grabbed me. That's what I got most passionate about in basically the last year and a half. I know so many producers, and then with the drought that we had, it got pretty tough on a lot of people, and I thought, like, why can't people just shop local? So generally the people I converse with, they don't need to. They have their own meat, or they know somebody who has their own beef. This is just right specific to beef. The ones that don't, they say they do shop local. So in Alberta, and basically in Canada, 80% of the meat produced is produced by Cargill in High River and JBS in Brooks. JBS is a Brazilian company. There's nothing local about that. And Cargill's headquarters are in the United States. They're actually the largest private business on the planet.
Yeah.
These companies, so JBS, $50 million in 2018 was their profits.
50 million.
50 million, that was just their profits in 2018. I couldn't find any closer numbers. But then I got looking and I thought, it's like, you know, why have we been tricked into this? Like, why can't we do this? So in 1988, there was 119 federally inspected packing plants across Canada, all of which were 100% Canadian owned. As of 2020, you know how many federally inspected packing plants are in the country of Canada? There's 20.
20, eh?
There's 20, 3 of which do 85% of the beef packing for the country. 2 are in Alberta. One is in Guelph, I believe. 2 are owned by Cargill and 1 is owned by JBS.
Yeah.
So nothing that we're doing when we're buying the stuff, the AAA Alberta beef off the shelf, effectively, for anybody that's thinking like, you know, I feel good about doing that, I'm sorry, wind out of your fucking sails. Or wind out of your sails.
Yeah.
Like it's not the case. So then I got to thinking, I was like, well, what are people making, right? So during COVID, the price per animal went from $2,600 down to $1,600 to $1,800 per head. That's how much the farmer lost. It was a 60% decrease. The price in the store went from $32.99 a pound in June 21st to $38.99 a pound on August 23rd. That was an 18% increase in just a very small, and I think it's gone up since then. So they've effectively robbed the producer and the consumer, and taken all of this money out of the country. Like, nothing that we're doing aside, all you're buying is a tag.
Sure.
And I'm sure the tag wasn't made in Canada.
Probably not.
Right? It was stamped wherever JBS or Cargill could source this cheapest.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, and it's over and over and over again. I had to, this is not a Canadian problem either. I know some of the guys that watch our channels are from this, wow, they're actually from all over.
All over the place, yeah.
These problems are, they're food production problems that, and I don't know if it's like the governments that made this or the private industry, but they've effectively, I was joking with a guy and I said, I expect young men to starve to death in a grocery store parking lot at some point, because they gotta buy food for their families. They can't afford it.
Yeah.
They can't afford any of it.
Yeah.
Like, except for like Delizio pizzas, 8 for $1 or whatever,
Sure,
you know, that's what they can afford.
Just plastic garbage, right?
And they'll just walk into the parking lot and they'll die. We're surrounded by thousands of head of cattle and sheep and chickens and turkeys, this with no knowledge that this is possible. You know, when we set up our Peace Country Local Food Connection page, there's been a few people that got some pretty good, both producers and consumers, that had some pretty good, what do you call them when they, testimonials or whatever. They said like, this really worked. And they said like, you know, why didn't we think of that? And I just kind of grit my teeth and think like, I don't know. It's such a simple concept. Like, why don't people think of this?
Yeah.
Fruits and vegetables, a little trickier because
look at where we are.
But you know, certainly for the beef, you know. So with this beef summary that I did, that's I mean, that kind of hits all of them. You know, you're not shopping as local as you think.
No.
You're not helping out the economy at all, like you think you are. You're lining pockets for whoever, wherever.
Yeah.
You know, and you're certainly not doing anything for Mother Earth. You know, by the time you buy all the packaged stuff, you get it shipped all over, like just it's going everywhere. You know, you're nothing that you think you're doing is true. It's not happening.
How much do you think the food industry impacts global greenhouse gas emissions?
Oh, I would have to. I would guess it would be like the 70% more higher. Like it's probably.
It's 26% of total greenhouse gas emissions. That's everything from like buses and trains and airplanes. And
I would. That surprises me.
26% of it. The food we waste contributes 6% to total greenhouse gas emissions. So if we were to take today, if we were just to say ground the planes, take the fleet down, that wouldn't even touch half of what food hitting the landfill creates in methane.
That's the end. Until I watched your video, I never even thought of that.
You know, so
stuff decomposing. I never even thought of it.
like it's absolutely incredible. You can take every airplane out of the sky and never even touch it. Not sure who that folks is there, but looks like we got somebody from Russia watching. So welcome to the farm.
Well,
It's not a translate button, unfortunately. What else you got for hard, shocking numbers?
Well, like those ones, those were the ones I wanted to make sure we got them out there, right? So the other, and then the rest are just kind of mind-boggling things. So, so the 3 plants that I said, 2 owned by Cargill, 1 owned by JBS, 2 in Alberta, 1 in Guelph. Those 2, they do as much. What was it here? So all the other 17, they do as much in a year as those 3 plants do in 15 days.
3 plants in 15 days has the same output as 17 plants
As the other
in the rest of the
17.
year.
It's totally amazing.
And you wonder why there's a bottleneck in the industry.
Well, this is, and that's why, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. We talk about all of this stuff. And it's so shocking that people say like, well, how were we so susceptible? This is why we're so susceptible.
We've monopolized the food industry.
When you have animals, and this, I had to look this up because the numbers were crazy. So it was 153,859 head of animals. That's in a year what all other 17 plants produce. That's what those 3 produce in 15 days. So I was thinking like, wow, what are they running through in a 24-hour shift? Then I just Googled the hours. Sure. Looks like they're only open 19 hours. So what are they open? What are they running through? They're running 4 full-grown bovine a second.
4 a second.
And just that alone, I was just like, yeah, I'm glad, I'm glad I'm not part of that.
Man,
That's way too much.
I can't even comprehend. Right?
I was very confused. I was very confused because it was 3.125 animals per second in a 24-hour shift, 4,500 head a day. With the capacity to do 7,000. That's at one plant. That's just at Cargill's plant.
You tell us that's not a factory.
And I was just like, holy moly! Like this is too, because it's just.
What happens when steak hits the floor?
Well, I didn't write that down. There was the thing about farm direct recall as opposed to, and it was almost something like there's never been, and maybe there was no way to track it, but there's never been like a farm direct shop recall.
Yeah.
Any major meat recall, any major vegetable recall has been tied to.
All from a plant.
Has been tied to a plant, and this stuff like, and you're right. You just like, how is this like? How did we get here? Like why? Why did we let everything go? And I know, like I talked to, so my dad's 69 years old. He said they always told us it was better. Yeah. Consolidate,
sure. Right?
I mean, you don't need to do it. Let us do it, right? That's why Cargill, they just the Cargill family paid themselves $643 million.
That's
but
an
when,
insurmountable number.
And I never looked in, if anybody who's watching from the States, you might know, I never even looked into what they're doing in the States. I know it's a big problem, it's a big fight ongoing right now, but I mean, what they're doing in Canada is just like,
it's borderline criminal. Well, I mean, it should be criminal. I mean, there are laws against some of that stuff, but we've got just enough competition in JBS.
But from the economic side, people say, well, I just I can't afford to shop local. And I try to explain, I was like, it's cheaper. Like it's financially cheaper. Not only is it better, it's better tasting, it's better all the way around. It's actually cheaper.
So you've got I don't know how many steers right now, right?
Well, we're down to 0, but we did have 9.
Okay, you had 9, right? So mathematically speaking, I can run to the Costco or the Best Buy, or I don't think they have Future Shop anymore, but wherever, and buy the biggest freezer they sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I can come and I can buy your whole animal, get it cut, wrapped, froze in my freezer at home. And even with buying the freezer, it's still cheaper than going and buying that cow piece by piece by piece by piece at the store.
When we did it, so I did our first one, and we lose a bit on this because we only want to buy small carcass weight animals. None of the people that I like, my immediate family and the people that get meat from us, nobody wants a 70-pound steak. It's cool for the restaurant in Texas, but
sure.
Let's be honest, if we want like 8 ounce, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, let's be reasonable. Yeah.
Also, these smaller carcass weight animals, when people pay on the rail, nobody wants to. If you want to charge them $5 hanging weight, and this thing weighs 1,000 pounds hanging because it's a massive Angus, you're asking quite a bit. I mean, ours weighed like, I think the biggest one was $500. Or 500 pounds, sorry, maybe not even. No, it must have been 400 and some. Because I think the most we got would have been about $1,800 for the whole entire animal. So when we broke that down, it was I think $700 or $800 savings.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to charge $4 a pound, and we took care of the butchering. So you end up with basically paying about $3.10 a pound for every cut, from hamburger, soup bones, right up to tenderloins.
Yeah.
And that breakdown is what we put that up on that, I don't know where we put it somewhere, Peace Country Food Connection or something, but it was a real.
I think it was on your farm page too.
So, yeah. and that being said, I mean, if you can go to a local farmer and he says, give me $6 hanging weight, and you think like, well, that's a lot. It's not, and you're actually winning now because it's going to go to a local facility.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I've seen the farmer willing to take care of all this for you. They'll even do the cut sheet for you if you don't know how.
Yeah.
So it's just and that same one or that new guy. There's another one up, anyways. So yeah, they'll.
This is Kristen last check. Just got here. We'll go back, watch the beginning afterwards. Hopefully, you haven't missed too much. So.
Well, you missed a lot. You missed 54 minutes of gold.
Missed some
even a couple of
some big stuff, some
offside swear words happen there, but it gets me a lot because it's such an easy concept, and it's such there's no downside. That's what I don't understand. I could see if people were like, well, it's not worth shopping local, I don't wanna pay the extra money.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper, it's $800 less.
So what if we get people to the point where they didn't have to shop? So here's a foreign concept, and we lived in town, and I know you did too before you moved out to the farm. There's a lot of folks that aren't really, they're not drinking the Kool-Aid in terms of, you know, having a garden or having backyard chickens, right? That's your backyard rabbits. Lots of folks that still want to do that. 51% of the Canadian population actually, as a 2020 data, were gardening. They're growing at least one form of produce, right? Which was a big uptick from previous. I think it was like around 46% or something like that. I'm sure that's going to drop off significantly here as you know, the passion wears off. You got lots of comments you're missing.
Jeremy, I'm sorry, I don't know what I did here. This is garbage. Jesus, all right.
But tell me this, so in the summertime or in the spring, we get, what did we get last year for chicks?
Jeremy says instead of greenhouses for pot, let's go ahead and get some greenhouses for tomatoes and lettuce.
Yeah.
We can agree on that.
Imagine that. We will agree 100% on that.
We mostly buy produce once a week because of it going bad. Yeah, absolutely. Stan and I talked about that. I mean, if you shop at Costco, you know full well that's going, it's going in the garbage, your savings.
That my very first trip to Costco, I came to Canada in 2000, and one of the very first things I did was get a Costco card. And I went down there and I'm like, man, you can buy a 3-gallon container of mayonnaise.
Leave it in the sun and die.
I threw out 2.98978 liters of mayonnaise because it's just unfathomable. Anyways, but yeah, so so backyard. What could I do with my backyard? When I lived in town, we had a garden. We were the anomaly. We pulled out and we had just, the ground is rock. It's just like here, right?
Absolutely.
Rock hard.
I know what you're dealing with.
But over some time and some amendments, and you can make it actually abundant. But anyway, so we pull out, 150, 170 pounds of potatoes the first year. And we're the anomaly on the block. Everybody just thinks what are these people doing, right? And it's always irked me, coming from the UK and seeing my grandparents' garden there. They had what would traditionally be known as a victory garden. It's not very, in the US they had them, in some areas of Canada they had them, but in the UK that was the big thing during the World War. Food rations, you literally couldn't get food. You either had to grow it or you're going to go hungry, right? You're only going to get 3 rashers of bacon a week and 2 eggs and a quarter of a pound of butter in a week, and that was going to have to feed a family of 4, right? Everything else you're on the hook for yourself, right? So everybody has these back gardens, and they just grow food, right? The front gardens for flowers, the back gardens for food. And it's always baffled me is when you come here and everybody says these pristine lawns, they mow them, they water them, they fertilize them. I think for the amount of effort that people put into these lawns, these blank canvases, they could put that same amount of effort into it and probably save themselves about $900, $1,500 a year in trips to Costco.
Absolutely.
Have something to show for it, right?
Absolutely.
So, I just, it baffles me why we don't have, raised beds. Have a bylaw. Everybody should be contributing to it. I really think if you're able to, the lawn is a monoculture. It's the enemy. It really is, it's a killer of time. It's non-productive time. And you could grow squash, you could grow pumpkins, you could grow potatoes, you could grow cherries, all this stuff you can grow here in our climate. We have one of the best summers anywhere else in the world because of the amount of daylight hours.
Yeah, absolutely. We have long days.
So summer growing period is amazing, right? We just don't do it. It's just baffling, right? So.
Well, yeah, they've even championed it now. Like if you got a community garden, you've really revolutionized the world. I mean, you think that's day one stuff.
That is day one stuff.
What else are you filling your day with?
Yeah.
When we lived in town, we didn't have one in the backyard, but because we had the farm, we had one at the farm.
So, like here, when in the summertime, when I bring the meat chickens in, we'll have 75 or 100 meat chickens that we raise on a quarter of an acre, and we just move them around the lawn, right? I mean, we've got more space than that, but that's really essentially all they take up. That's the average residential lot in town. If you just wanna keep it grass,
Mhm.
you can run meat chickens on there, and sure, you gotta feed them grain and stuff as a supplement, but I mean, largely they eat grass, and you just move them around. And you can have, 100 chickens, that they finish out at 8 pounds, 800 pounds of food, just that your lawn can produce in terms of protein, like there, from a feed conversion factor,
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's certainly better than the feed conversion factor of, here I put $300 in at Costco, and $100 of it goes in the black bin on a Wednesday or whatever, you know, so. But, so you say, okay, well, how do we get here? Is it McDonald's? Is it McDonald's in the was it 1950s or 1960s when they kinda grew legs, and the 15-cent hamburger, and they bought up all this real estate, and
Yeah,
that's how they made their money, is real estate essentially, because they own the land, and they lease the land to the franchisee, and they really don't sell hamburgers, real estate giants, right?
Yeah.
But they've taken that away, and they've taken that away from the individual, as the onus, the ownership of, I've gotta provide food for myself, because I can just go down, it's just easy. And it's not just easy in terms of, I don't have to do it, it's easy in terms of, I don't have to do it. And literally from the time it takes me to go from that shiny board over there to that second window, I have a hot steaming pile of garbage that they call food, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, by the numbers, right now, there's, I think, 7.9 billion people in the world. That's dangerously close to 8 billion people, right? How many farmers are in the world?
I think it gets less every year, but I don't know, wouldn't be able to say.
We saw an increase throughout the pandemic, and I
Oh,
think
wow.
that's because there was,
People registering as farmers or actual farmers?
well, there's been a,
Those who identify as?
those you identify as farmers, yeah, let's call it that. I would say there's been somewhat of an exodus from urban life. There's a lot of folks that wanna get out onto small holdings, homesteads, acreages, and I mean, there's definitely a passion, there's a current movement in place. But in 2019, the number was 570 million farmers,
Okay.
right? As of right now, last 2021 data, we showed us 603 million farmers. That still seems like a lot, but when you think you're feeding 8 billion people, that's 8 with 9 zeros behind it, right? That's a lot of people that 570 million people gotta feed,
Yeah.
right? So then, out of those, 475 million of those farms operate on 2 hectares or less. So a hectare for those that are unaware what a hectare is, 100 meters by 100 meters, right? So 2 hectares is plus or minus, it's just shy of 5 acres, right? So very, very small amount of land. So that's 98% of farms operating on basically 5 acres.
Yeah.
That's what they call themselves, a farm. And you see that lots of that in the States, and there's just hundreds of them, right? So by 2050, which is not very far away, what is that, like, that's just less than 30 years, right?
Yeah.
The world population is expected to be 9.8 billion. That's dangerously close to 10 billion.
Well, I thought old Elon Musk said we were going backwards. Didn't you watch that? He said we had a,
Well, we will go backwards. When all those 24-year-old men starve in the parking lot of the grocery store, for sure that's gonna happen, right? But barring plague, famine, or war, if we keep on as we are, in 30 years, we're gonna have to feed 2 billion more people. So that's pretty concerning, right? So based on,
He said something. I don't know how to make it stay.
yeah,
It disappears.
That was the challenge I had, because you can see I got the same thing on my phone. The chat box comes up, but I could never make it do its thing
I'll have to
and stay
Google
there.
that.
I think it's a mobile thing.
You're fighting with
So-
a society that lives in urban areas that literally buy what they're going to eat that day. Waste doesn't concern them as long as they can afford to buy the food the next day.
That's an interesting concept, and
Are we doing these?
I'm gonna respect, we should do these. But-
We're at
so
the
do you
halfway
think-
part.
Do you think people buy what they need to eat? Or,
I think, I do not,
That
and,
day?
I don't think people even buy what they need to eat. I think people buy what they think they need to eat. I think the average person is so disremoved from a cookbook and a stove that they have no clue that you can make a meal out of meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I mean, my grandpa lived to 83 years old, and that's all he lived on was meat and potatoes.
Well, maybe I can just
So-
do that. When my great uncle Charlie came to our farm in 1995, he couldn't believe how much land my dad had. He was from the UK. Yeah, those are that's all very true. A lot of people don't understand the land base of the West and the amount of I guess the amount of food that we produce.
I don't know if you're gonna try this or not, but
Or did you just lob it off?
I thought.
We lost our cutter. We had a
lost the
cutter, but
cutter,
it's
so
gone.
I was gonna try and roll it, but then I didn't, because there's not a lot of shoulder on this cigar, and I just
Well,
didn't
what
wanna
did-
butcher it.
I didn't watch your video.
You didn't watch?
I did. I was busy.
So
I
they
was flat
make
out.
different types of cutters. There's a single blade cutter, there's a V blade cutter, there's a dual blade cutter, and then there's actually one that you can punch. Basically, you just work it in there,
And that's the best way.
well, it all depends on the type of cigar that you're smoking, and this is the one thing I learned. I just thought cigar is a cigar, and the only difference was the flavor, but there's actually a lot of difference in the way they roll them and in the way they shape them.
Anybody watching smoke cigars at all? Or is this just, cause Stan and I don't?
Well, we do now.
Well, we're doing it. I did that. I didn't even cut myself. So
It was
I'm a winner.
it was funny because I was in the store and the kid in there, when I told him we were going to do this on YouTube, he said, "Oh, it'd be great, you know, if you're on your YouTube and you rant about us." I'm like, "I don't think you really want us to rant about you." He's like, "Well, maybe you could chant about us." Like, I don't think that word means what you think it means. I think what you want us to do is you want us to rave about you. Perhaps that's what you're trying to say here. But anyways, these Romeo and
What do you
Juliet
got there?
Cuban cigars, they come with a sheet of cedar inside, and so I just split a little piece off. And so what the gentleman did tell me is that when you're lighting a cigar,
This smells terrible.
this smells terrible.
This does.
Oh, the cedar smells terrible. That if you're using any type of a fuel lighter, whether it's butane or whether it's a liquid fuel, and you light your cigar, that a portion of that can then become infused with the cigar, and that can affect the flavor of it. So what they recommend is you take your cigar, you light this strand, and you use the cedar strand to light it.
I did not know that's why people use wooden matches. I did not know that. Whoops.
You gotta roll it.
My cedar went out. This is hard. Hard looking cool.
Like a couple of schoolboys here. I even joked the other day, I said, "Oh, hopefully we don't look like a couple of boys trying to figure out how to do a circumcision here."
Well,
The
this-
challenge is when you get to the cap, right? When you cut the cap, if you get too deep into the shoulder, the cigar will actually unwrap itself. And if you butcher it, what can actually happen
Oh shit.
is, how's your fingers?
I got concentrating on this bad boy.
If you butcher it, you can end up with a whole bunch of tobacco in your mouth, and it's never good for anybody, right?
Well, I think I got it. They do smell good. The cigars do. I'm not sold on how this smells, but I didn't think you're supposed to smell it anyways. I think I like the fuel. I like the fuel lighter better.
Why? Because it's convenient? Thought we decided that was the devil.
You see, you can't get away from it. Like, no matter what you're told, you're gonna go to convenience. I don't even think I had any more on this page. We hammered out the beef thing pretty good. I don't know where we left off. Farmers.
Farmers, well, so here's the thing. So we got 8 billion people. We're gonna feed 10 million in 30 years. based on the current population and the food network that we have in place today, there's 4 billion tons of food, right? 4 billion tons of food produced every year, and 33% of it goes in the garbage. Like,
The cherry Colts were good, yeah, absolutely, Chad. And yeah, Jeremy, when you got a lighter, you may as well use a lighter. Ugh. Did we get them all? Yeah, we got them all.
well, I'm pretty happy that this thing tastes like tobacco and not like gasoline, so.
They're actually working too. Last one I had like this, it just went out all the time and I was all confused, mad, frustrated by it. You're right, we're gonna have to get a computer.
The computer's the way to go on. The computer I have,
Cause you're missing them, well, you're getting them here.
I'm getting them here, which is fortunate, and by your grace, I tell ya.
We brought everything, we got like three iPads, 2 phones, a computer, 2 webcams, and this is what we landed on, so
We got-
there.
In the background behind everything, I got like, well, it's covered up here now, I got the tripod, we're ready for a full movie
We had no
production.
idea what we were doing. We just knew that the first time we did it, we missed a ton of comments. And I'm still missing them. But
Yeah. So we all know what the problem is. We probably all know what the solution is, or think we do. How is it that we can't get there? We're all smart people, right? We're surrounded by smart people. Nobody goes to Costco as an idiot. But they make decisions, right? So, the human brain right now is, I mean, there's still, in the advancements of computer technology, talk about the garbage piece of computer we have over here, is maybe a bad example, but I mean, there's some pretty fancy computers out there that you would think would outwork the human brain. But even today, there's not a computer on the planet that can outthink the human brain. That can process.
is that true?
Yeah, that's 100% true, right? So, the challenge though is the human brain has to do, every situation that the human brain faces has to go through a dual logic check, right? And the first one is instinctual, right? And that's the fight or flight. Like, I see, there's a problem in front of me, am I gonna stay and solve this problem? Or am I just gonna leave, right? And oftentimes I think that's the biggest problem is people they're just like, there's nothing I can do about this, it's not my problem, out they go, right?
Yeah.
And that's, whether it's walking away from your problems or running away from your problems, whatever it is, not remaining accountable for what's actually happening in your world, not remaining accountable for the contributions that you make to the world, that's a huge issue. Just burying your head in the sand, right? But then the downstream problem is when you say, okay, well, I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna solve this problem. Now, the brain, again, pulses a logic check, and it says, what's easy and what's right? What do you think that when the brain does that logic check, what do you think the question comes first is?
Oh, what's easy?
What's the easiest thing to do in this situation,
Absolutely.
right?
Guilty.
And so oftentimes when it comes to decision making, our brain never even makes it to what's the right thing to do. If by chance it even makes it to let's solve this problem, it doesn't stand a real good chance of getting to what's the right thing to do. And that to me is a huge issue. That's why we keep having this problem. How's your whiskey?
I've got a little bit left. I'm just doubling back to make sure we didn't miss too many. You might even have more on there, because they didn't pop up here as fast as they were coming on there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's some lag there or not.
We did have, I don't know if you guys were around to see that, Jeremy and Chad, but we did actually have one of the guys that gets feed and watches our YouTube channel. He dropped these off. So yeah, Canada outlawed them, but apparently in the States you can still get flavored. So these are peach. So
You can get flavored ones, eh?
they said these come from the States. These are peach. So I'll take their word for it, I
Well,
guess.
I got the lid off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when
Yeah, we'll do when. What time is it? We may as well go to 2 again,
might as well, yeah.
because that might just become the thing.
Yeah. So I mentioned this before, but our food production we have currently right now accounts for 26% of global greenhouse gas emissions. food waste in and of itself accounts for 6%.
In that 25, or what, in that 20, what do you say, 27?
There's 26% of global greenhouse gas emissions, right? So that's everything from tractors to rail cars to, the oil field,
Yeah.
everything in the world that emits methane, carbon, and all that stuff. 26% of that comes from food production alone.
Okay,
Is that a problem? Probably not. We gotta eat, right? So we can probably accept that number.
but your 6% on food
can we-
waste, was that on top of that 26?
That's on top of the 26,
Wow.
right? So that's the number that's really, really hard to, sorry, I just got a little bit of a aqua vitae to the aqua vitae here. Don't wanna water it down for the folks that wonder what I'm doing.
That smells so good.
A couple drops of water also helps to bring out the undertones in the Scotch. Now, any
Is that
Scotch-
true?
That is true. So Scotch connoisseurs from the distilleries themselves, when they get asked this question, if you've ever read the back of the bottle and talks about fruity undertones, hints of peach, vanilla, and muskeg, or whatever it is.
Tastes like
A
an
lot
old
of us
shoe.
with, because we all have different palates, right? So a drop of water actually helps to bring out the undertone.
Can it be any water, or does it have to be 10,000-year-old snow?
Well, I'd say if you wanted to do it, you probably wouldn't want to do it with chlorinated water, right? A good distilled water or
Oh,
something,
I gotta try it.
right?
And nothing if not.
Okay, so while you're doing that, while you're starting a new hobby, a third of the food that we produce is thrown away. And I think we could all agree, not all food's created equal in terms of, if we throw away meat versus if we throw away vegetables, and what's the consequence to each of that? But if you actually look at the food that gets thrown away, 33% of the volume of the food gets thrown away, but it's actually 25% of the caloric value, right? So again, that's why not like vegetables, the caloric value of vegetables versus the caloric value of meat. We throw away 20% of meat production, which is, that's one thing I said earlier, is that makes me very angry as a producer that pours your heart and soul into raising animals and giving them the best possible upbringing, only to see them go to the landfill, is one thing. If some tomatoes end up in the landfill, really low consequence in terms of, we're
Yeah,
dealing with the
yeah.
greenhouse gas emission side of things, but we didn't take a life to get there, right?
I want to
Now-
just jump in quick and say, anybody that is watching this, if you didn't watch Stan's video on why is meat so expensive, he did that about 2 weeks ago, I think. That really spurred me when we were thinking of our next topic to do this. That was a good video. Watch. If you don't watch if you don't watch anything else this week, watch that, because that's kind of why this
I appreciate
this
that.
got in like that. I texted him right away and I said, like, you've ruined the rest of my day, because now I'm just fuming, because it was a really well done one. So we'll figure out. Stan knows how to link stuff, so he'll link that in here, and then but it was called "Why is meat so expensive?"
Yeah, I
Picture
think
of
it
meat,
was- I think it
picture
was
of
wise
package of meat.
So the context behind that was that we do food recovery from grocery stores here on the farm. We feed the dogs, the chickens, the pigs with things that are discarded or on their way to the landfill from local grocery stores. And when I was sorting through it, I come across, I think it was beef tenderloin steak, at like $40 a kilo steak, right? So high value in and of itself, monetary wise, high value. But also just to see, that's not the kind of cut of meat I expected to see in the garbage. Like hamburger, stuff like that, or,
Yeah.
A round steak that's probably as tough to chew on as this piece of wood here, right? I get that there's that, but I really had a tough time reconciling myself with the finest cuts of meat on the planet
Yeah.
could end up in the garbage, right?
Well, you're right, and then that's a slap in the face all the way around, from the producer to the butcher to the trucker that moved it around to the farmer who grew the feed. So much went into that top quality cut of meat that the rest of the what they say, so much of the world lives below the poverty line would die to have.
Yeah.
The option to just see that on the store, and here in the Western world we throw it away like it's just a sheet of newspaper.
Like it's nothing.
It's unbelievable. That was That was an eye opener to watch.
I've got
really.
those numbers in here somewhere too, what that actually works out to be, but. So anyways, yeah, 24% of emissions from food, 24% of food emissions come from food that's lost in the supply chain. 10% of that comes from the supply chain itself in terms of like trucking and transport. And 9% of that is food being thrown out of either grocery stores or your fridge at home. Right? That's a significant amount. So what does it even matter? Okay, it's just percentages and it's just numbers and okay, what does it roll down to dollars and cents? That's $278 billion that we lose from the North American economy. So Canada, the US, and Mexico, right? $278 billion. That's a lot of zeros, right?
Yeah, it's numbers like that when you look at however you felt about, CERB payments and stuff like that. And just bear with me. We complain so much about anything that we don't quite agree with. We don't see eye to eye with right away. Oh, it's too much, and then you can bring up numbers like this, and we waste so much more than we. With what we waste, we could easily fund these things that we don't agree with anyways. But I mean, it's unbelievable.
I skipped over this comment right at the very beginning, and I shouldn't have. But something that I think we agreed on earlier is that middle class consumers in the Western world are so privileged that they will literally complain about the price of food as they scrape it into the garbage. Right. Yeah, that's a little bit Marie Antoinette, right? Well, if they're hungry, let them eat cake. While they all starve, right? So anyways, so that's the economy side of it. $278 billion that just gets lost from the North American economy, which is a really fancy word of saying $278 billion that we shortchange our farmers. That's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Sure, the consumer loses because meat is overpriced, but we could largely agree that the meat packing industry has driven farmers so close to the edge of their margins that it's borderline not worthwhile even doing it.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the love of doing what we do, we wouldn't do it.
We'll have to get to Glenn's thing too. We can't forget that. Glenn had on your thing, he wanted to talk about
the cost.
Is it even worth raising meat anymore?
Yeah, so I'll just get these couple numbers done and then we've got to touch on that one for sure. So the environment, 193 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions every year from food waste. What does that work out to? What is that even comparable to? Well, that's comparable to 41 million cars idling 24/7 for a year. 41 million cars we could take off the road and still wouldn't touch what we have rotting in our landfills right now. Because and for everybody's like, well, how does that work? Like, why is the emission so high? So there's two things that happen in decomposition. There's aerobic process or anaerobic process. And so in a landfill where everything's basic underneath a pack, right? It's an oxygen deficient atmosphere and it decomposes. What it does is the bacteria converts that to methane. And methane is significantly more. It's like 26 times more damaging to the environment than carbon dioxide, right? So that's why that's a big deal. Versus an aerobic process, which we see through composting, where the bacteria actually consume that material and leave behind nutrient-dense soil. So that's one project that we're actually working on the farm here because we work in a windswept, water-swept hillside, and we talk about the average topsoil. I'm going to go on a bit of a tear here about the environment and topsoil loss. I apologize, but we have 6 years of topsoil left in the civilized world. That's what's left. So by the time our kids are grown, we're not going to be able to feed 10 billion people. That poverty, that famine, that war, all that's going to come to bear simply based on the fact that the reduction in topsoil we currently have. So to me, it's inherently important that we start looking at food waste and the things we cannot curb in terms of vegetable food matter waste. We need to be actively composting and returning that back to the soil. Because if we don't, we're we're literally, North America is gonna turn to a desert. That's what's gonna happen, right? Anyways, that's my little rant. So, $2 billion in tipping fees at landfills. So that's what it costs that's what it costs the industry, right? All that food that leaves the garbage in the IGA or the co-op or the Safeway or whatever, $2 billion a year.
Are
they
these,
have-
these are North American figures.
This is Canada.
Oh, this is Canada.
$2 billion Canadian dollars. Grocery stores across our country have to spend shipping goods that they could not sell to the dump, where it sits and rots and makes methane. That's 39 million cubic feet of landfill space.
Question, if you feed your wasted food back to the pigs and eat the pig, does that cancel the waste? Jeremy, see, that popped up. Why did none of them other pop up?
Okay, so to answer that question from a legality standpoint, if you're a small producer and you're gonna feed food waste, there are very specific regulations, and they're unique to each jurisdiction that you live in terms of what you can and can't feed animals for the food chain. So, if you're part of a program that recovers food waste before it hits the dumpster, while it's still good, in terms like, maybe it's past its sell-by date, but it's not past its best before date, then largely you're okay to do that. But there's lots of stuff you can't feed. You can't feed to pigs, you can't feed to chickens. But chickens, I mean, we could probably all agree, chickens are pigs with wings. There is nothing a chicken will not eat. And if there's a piece of chicken in the food that goes to the chickens, they will eat that like it is the best thing they've ever eaten. Right? And that's kind of a gross thing about chickens. Pigs are largely the same, right? And so there's very, very tight regulations on what you can do there. When it comes to meat waste, though, most of us, I mean, we have an LGD and we have a cattle dog here. There's no reason why that can't be processed through that way. The vegetable matter goes to pigs. The bakery goods can go to the chickens. Everybody's triple happy teddy bears. We're compliant with food regulations, and nobody's going to get mad chicken disease. That's my background, right? I grew up in the UK. I gotta tell
That's
the story.
always funny when you talk about that.
So I grew up in the UK through the whole mad cow disease epidemic, and just saw the cattle industry basically crushed, and then begin to recoup, and then foot and mouth disease came in and said, "Oh no, you're not," right? So a couple of years ago, I was with some colleagues in Edmonton. I think it was Edmonton or Calgary. I think it was Edmonton. Anyways, and they all wanted to go donate blood, and I'd never donated blood. And this might be a new thing. Every time I'm in Edmonton, I could go and I could donate blood. And if you do donate blood, thank you very much. Very valuable thing that you're doing, and it's an act of kindness that's immeasurable. But I go in there and you have to fill out a questionnaire, and the first thing it says is, did you live in the UK between 1995 and 2004?
Nobody wants Stan's blood.
And so, I mean, you got to be honest. I mean, they ask you all these other questions about, do you have a male-to-male relationship or a female-to-female relationship? All these kind of questions about your sexuality, are you a recreational drug user, and then did you ever live in the UK? So, I checked one of these boxes thinking, okay, this is probably going to trigger a secondary or a tertiary question. And immediately this lady comes in the room and she's like,
get out.
It's not like get out, but she's like, no, like you gotta come, you gotta talk to somebody else. So I get up and we go to this other room and she sits me down and she's like, yeah, so like you lived in the UK and yeah, and you consume beef? Yeah, I mean, we lived on farms. Like, what did you think we're baked beans and bangers? No. Well, there was a lot of that too, but anyway, so she's like, okay, well, I gotta put your information in the computer and then see like when you could possibly donate blood. The computer spits out this number that is just like, you can't make this up. The year 2293, I will be eligible to donate blood. So they can dig me up and suck whatever dust is left in my veins, and I'll try and help out where I can.
Shit, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So that was always kind of the running joke through the beginning of the COVID pandemic, because I was a filthy mudblood, and I couldn't catch the COVID, but it actually got me here a while back, so.
It did.
Put me to bed, that's why this was late, because I had to sit at home with a headache for a few days, so.
Weak.
But anyways, you should answer Glenn's question, I think it's a pretty valid question.
Yeah, so how did he word that? He wanted, I guess he basically wanted to know, is it worthwhile growing your own food with the high cost of feed? Is that basically the gist of
So,
it?
yeah, so the price of grain or any kind of animal feed is it's gone up exponentially in the last year. It's forecasted to go up more.
Yeah,
Anybody that wants to grow their own food, is it really tangible for them to do that anymore?
it most certainly has, and I thought I wrote this down before I came here. So basically, the long and the short is yes and no. Right? It's always going to be financially worthwhile to do this. If you do it properly, it's going to be better for the climate, it's going to be better for the economy, and it's going to be better for your pocketbook. The thing about it, chicken and pork, we can basically agree that's a tough one to do. The supermarkets have that nailed down. I don't understand how they can. I got to say, so my dad was saying closer to Thanksgiving, he read an article, or he read the flyer for the grocery store, and it was something like buy something and get a free turkey or something, or get a free chicken.
Really?
This is how this went. And he
Like an $80 turkey.
Well, but that was the point. They're basically saying it's worthless, right? You know, a butterball turkey, 10-pound or 5-pound turkey is nothing, right? It's $8 or whatever. Why? And he said, why not the other way around?
Yeah.
Why not pay for the turkey and get a free case of Coke or something? Something that's
Coffee or
actually
whatever.
worthless,
Yeah, yeah.
So my dad's pretty passionate about egg never getting the respect it deserved, and it really doesn't. Farmers are always going to complain about that, but it doesn't. So back to Glenn's question, is it worthwhile? The times where it's not financially worthwhile, you're going to get such a, it's better for the economy and better for the climate to do it yourself. Plus the food quality is better. Stan talks about that in lots of his stuff about an animal is what it eats. So if you want actual nutrient-rich food, you're going to want to eat something that was fed, a diet of local grains or whatever, at least less processed. Feed rations in commercial poultry barns they're basically appalling. They're absolutely maximum growth for minimum intake. They dim the lights. I had it in here, 9 square feet per pig in a hog barn. I don't know if that's the whole thing. 9 square feet, that's not a lot for a big pig. So,
Not for a 300-pound pig, no.
So did grains go up? Absolutely. Are they going to stay this high? I kind of doubt it from a grain producer side. When they do go down, it's going to be earth-shattering because, and this would be back to some of my videos about grain. I won't get into that. Maybe that'll be a topic for another time. But the way grain is marketed, if you weren't able to realize these high grain prices because you had forward contracted your grain, now you're going to go right into the next growing season of paying the high fertilizer prices. This is deflecting a little bit from Glenn, but I guess what I'm saying is grain prices shouldn't go down with any indication. So you're going to have to figure out a way to do it. When I did the math on basically about 25 cents per pound of grain, if you can feed an animal, I had one 4-H kid tell me they were up to 45 pounds of grain a day for that animal, which I was like, wow, that's a lot. So what's 45 times a quarter? That's like, I had this written down. I don't have a calculator, but anyways, it worked out to even that you could make about $8 because the animal gained 6 pounds per day.
Yeah.
So if you can get there $4 or whatever, so it's always going to be okay. And the times, Glenn, where it's not actually financially feasible, pig is. I mean, we're raising 10 pigs right now, and I did that kind of as an experiment. I had no idea. that is a total loss. That's a total, that you are strictly doing that to get
Raising
your own pork.
pigs to get your own pork, yeah.
Like because, you know, even for me, $425 for a 2,000 pound bag of barley with molasses in it and, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You dump that in and then you go get another one.
Yeah,
And now you're $850 and you're thinking like, so what can I squeeze out of this pig?
so I could finish a pig on an 1,800 pound cow, $400 some dollars, right, whatever that costs now.
Well, they say 27 bushels to finish a pig,
Yeah.
which I think is about a bag,
Yeah,
about 1,800 pound bag.
It's thereabouts, right? But if you can go and buy that pork off the shelf, as a consumer, you look at that, okay, well, I can buy pork for half of that price. Apple ID 4 now being used on this FaceTime. Oh, somebody else is using some stuff here. Hopefully we're back, hopefully they didn't lose anybody there. I think the wife might be using my iPad in the house or something like that. Anyway, that's fine. Yeah, so if I can go to the grocery store and I can buy pork for $300, but it costs me $400 to make it, what's the value there? The value is you're not feeding yourself garbage. The human body is what? Water and sunshine. That's it. 70% water, the rest of it's carbon. So why wouldn't we want to try and put that back in? So when we feed chickens, you know, we do chicken tractors, we move them around the yard. There's a huge portion of their diet comes off of grass. And grass is what? Grass is water and sunshine, basically. Converted carbon through photosynthesis, the sugars, energy into the chickens, right? Pure sunshine being fed to those chickens. So I'm gonna go that way every single day.
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff you can do if you're real crafty. If you're a pig whisperer, you know, pasture pork, keep them out in the open. If you can move them around, you're not going to create too much disturbance on your soil, and you can drive your feed costs down significantly that way as well. But I will say for the folks that are feeding grain, the price is going up. You can bet if you're buying meat out of the grocery store for any animal that's feeding grain, the price is going up too.
Absolutely.
And we saw that last year. The price of a turkey went from $23 to $55 for a full-grown bird. Right? So we did have a question here from Kristen. She just asked here, just wondering where you get your meat chickens. We get our very first batch from the hatchery through PV Mart. Just wondering if there's more around. I'm not sure which hatchery you use, Kristen. We use Miller Hatcheries here, but there's also Rochester Hatchery that I'm familiar with. And then there's Hemborough's Custom Hatching as well. And then I think maybe Aurora Ag, I think they do some. Maybe they just do feed, I'm not sure. But there's a handful of them out there. And then there's obviously a lot of local producers that hatch out their own eggs, their own incubators as well. Word of caution on that, if you're talking small hatcheries, if they don't have the capability to do things like vaccinations for Marek's disease and coccidiosis, you've got to be prepared to take some losses for that. That's one thing that we learned early on is we bought birds from just somebody, and then suddenly we wonder why they started goose stepping around the yard, and then all of a sudden one was kind of limp and lame on the other side, and then we had some chickens that were just upside down, and that was Marek's disease. And once it's here, it's just here. And so every bird that now comes onto the property is through a legitimate, reputable hatchery, and they're already vaccinated. We just don't have to worry about that stuff. So word of caution on that. But still, largely, we're buying 100 birds at $279 a bird. I think you can drive it down to about $250, $260 if you're getting them unsexed. And at the end of it, yeah, we're still ahead of the game, right? So.
Yeah, Jeremy said that the pigs are a loss. They are, and as far as that 27 bushels. One thing I don't know. I think the butcher weight for a hog is higher than it used to be. Like the butcher now wants them around like 280 or something. He said.
Oh, really?
250, and I don't think that was
The butcher wants that, or
Yeah.
the consumer wants that?
No, the butcher. He said you get better bacon, but I thought wasn't the butcher weight for a hog like 180 pounds or something at one point?
Yeah, it was 180. We just sent our last batch at 220. and the year before we were 205 and 210
Okay,
ish thereabouts.
cause we measured ours, and yeah, I figured they're around 220, 218, somewhere in, well, that's ridiculous, 220. But yeah, he said, no, if you can get them to 250, a little bit better, a little bigger, it'll be better. So that's the bushel, if you're gonna raise them for another 100 pounds, you're gonna need a little bit more grain.
Yeah, you're gonna need more, yeah, and you gotta really kind of weigh in the cost. Okay, well, if I'm gonna put on that much more feed to get 100 pounds more meat, with a pig, I'm only gonna get 70% of that meat back.
Well, I can tell you
I'm gonna pay the
100%, as a grain producer who grew the grain and is feeding it to a pig, grinding it up, that you probably will, you will not come out ahead on pork.
Yeah,
There's just no way.
yeah,
If you find family friends who are willing to pay for what they're getting, because it is worth it. Stan and I both agree with that. It is worth it.
oh, the flavor, the quality of the pork is undeniably better.
But you got to be one heck of a salesman to convince the general population. You got another one. The general population that this is better. Once they try it, I almost guarantee you they won't go back. I almost guarantee that, because it's not like the pork from the store was worthless. It cost them something. So you know, you may be just costing them a little bit more, but once they try it, it's gonna be. It's the work you want to put into marketing it is all it is.
Yeah, yeah. So Christian just had a follow-up question there. Have you thought about doing a bulk order with others to get them in the cheapest range? So we order 100 chicks. That's not the cheapest, but I think the next increment is like 500, right? So you'd have to go in with a few people, and there's I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do. Certainly, if you're dealing with some very like-minded individuals that you get along with, that's one thing. But just trying to put out a community post there and say, hey, I want to get 500 chicks. Does anybody want in on this? If 20 of them show up dead, you're gonna have to, because there are losses at times, you're gonna have to be able to figure out the logistics of making sure that the other people that are part of that deal still get their chicks, and who takes the losses. And it can be a quick way to lose friends when you're dealing with mass deals like that, right? So there's a lot of risk in transporting live chicks that are a day old. There's been some horror stories out there about a box of 75 chicks and they're all just dead, right? That's the challenge when you're putting them through Canada Post, especially now with the issues with Canada Post, right? If I just buy my chicks and things go wrong with my chicks, I can phone the hatchery and say, hey, the chicks you sent me, they're kaput, and I'll work out something with the hatchery, right? But if you've got a whole bunch of people in the middle of it, it may go sideways on you, right? Just to save a few bucks. Sometimes it's better to just not save a few bucks and only have to worry about your own headache, right?
So Chad threw up here. He said it was efficiencies in the big barns is what drove us out of the pig business when I was a kid. Our unheated barn with straw couldn't raise pigs as cheaply as the big guys with the better genetics. So it was funny. Also, before Stan and I decided this was going to be a topic, I was thumbing through Facebook, and I sent him the complaints out of the UK pork producers, and that's right across the board. I got a couple that gets feed. They were heavily involved in pigs in Alberta, and they said the hog industry is always under pressure. They're always basically losing money. So back to when I asked, like when Stan and I were talking, like how did we get here? Like who made this and convinced the general public that these large hog barns were the best idea? They've driven the quality of pork in the store down to nothing.
Yeah.
The price of the pork down in the store to pork is a fairly cheap meat.
Mm-hmm.
They've driven that down to nothing. They left the pork producer footing the bill, and I had written down here, I think it was like $2 million in 2008 or something to build a hog barn. 1,000, I think it was 1,000, maybe it's on here.
A lot of these commercial farms do, like the farmer is required to invest in the infrastructure. I can't speak to pigs, but I know with chickens, you get these large contracts through Cargill and the like, where the farmer is responsible for the infrastructure and the maintenance and the upkeep, but Cargill owns the bird.
Yeah.
Right? right? So the farmer takes all of the risk, and they get returned like 5% or something like that, right? So largely, it's not even worth it, right?
No, but yeah, but you know, and that's the saddest thing, to drive out an owner operator, a small producer, because, you know, oh, the big farm can do it better, and then we're finding out now, like this whole cookie is crumbling. You talk about it all the time, the supply chain, everything. This is actually all crumbling. We're starting to realize now, because what was it? It was only so 1988. That's 33 years.
Yeah.
It only took that long for the big corporations, the governments, to legislate, to regulate everything in to being centralized, mass-produced, factory farmed. We're in its infancy, and we're starting to see now at 33 years, it's a total wreck.
Yeah.
Food quality has deteriorated. The cost of food, yeah, it got cheaper, but you're not buying anything. You're effectively buying a pork chop that, it could be this piece of wood. I mean, really, like it's what it is, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, the nutrient quality of food, the decline of nutrient capacity in food now versus 30 years ago is like 50%. It's shocking. It's like 50% of what it was before. You another comment there?
Well, he just says, you know, it's crazy. We made good money through most of the 80s with a 50 pig sow fair to finish. Got out of it. Why does it keep going away?
My grandparents, you know, here in Canada was the same way. You know, they had pigs, and largely that was their income, and a couple of milk cows, and they were able to feed the family and have some left over, and that was all they needed. But yeah, it's a shame. Okay, you ready for some more shocking numbers?
Let's hear them.
How much wildlife habitat do you think having to expand our current need for food, and in terms of, okay, we're buying all this food, 33% of it's going to the garbage, population growth, how much farmland is now taking over wildlife habitats, do you think?
Just in Canada, or?
No, it's the US, is the only number I can
Okay.
find.
The numbers are so big, it would be hard to guess. It's just hard to be a lot.
It's hard to guess because it's hard to comprehend once you hear the number. 32 million hectares of wildlife habitat is lost to farmland. In order to grow food, okay, so this is the number. It's not 32 million new hectares of land every year just for farming. This is 32 million hectares of wildlife habitat is converted to farmland to grow food that's going to go in the garbage. Right, so the actual number is like 96 million hectares.
Yeah.
Right? 33% of it goes in the garbage, right? So that's this is an incomprehensible number. $408 billion worth of food going in the garbage. While globally we have 957 million people that don't have enough to eat.
That is the.
So that's I mean, real close to 1 in 8 people, right? So I mean, I don't know a ton of people. I run a really small, tight circle, but I mean, if you can imagine 1 in 8 people, you know, your own home, and then your neighbor. One of those people is going hungry, or is having to make some level of sacrifice that they shouldn't have to make. Now, largely, a lot of that's concentrated to you know, developing world and things like that, right? But still.
But you're reading about it here now all the time. You know, in the last few years, people making the choice between heat and.
Well, I mean, we just got this, right? Our December utility bill was $999.50.
I was going to ask you, did you get a higher one?
What do you mean?
Our bill last month was $1,400.
For December? For January?
Well, no, you had $999 and a half, and I had $997 that month. The next month, $1,400. I didn't even know that. I just got told that yesterday.
That's
and
why.
I thought, sweet. Right? Like, whatever was left in those pigs is gone now.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, the profitability. I mean, thank goodness my brother's an accountant, because our little tax shelter here. I mean, every time we put the books to him, and you could see like the eyebrow goes up, and he's just like, "Oh, you're gonna get audited," because I mean, you're just constantly like you're going backwards, right? But anyway, so I mean, there's $408 billion worth of food going to the garbage. that doesn't go to the garbage alone, right? Like it's coming out of the grocery store, it's all wrapped in plastic, and that's where that, 1.9 million tons of plastic ends up in Canadian landfills every year for food that's never consumed, right? So 20% of the meat that's raised for human consumption gets wasted. Now it's either sold and discarded, or unsold and discarded from the grocery store, or it's brought home and it's thrown out of the fridge, right? But when it comes to meat, like what's 20% look like? So in order to understand what the consequence or the cost of 20% of meat being discarded is, we need to understand just how many animals are actually slaughtered in Canada. So we mentioned this at the beginning. I don't know if we were on yet or not, but how many chickens are eaten globally every year? So chicken, I mean, the number's so huge because, I mean, a chicken's only like 8 or 9 pounds, or you get those little rotisserie chickens, they're only like 5 pounds, right? So versus, an 1,800 pound cow, right? But there's 50 billion chickens in the world that get consumed every year, right? That's a huge number, but just here in Canada alone, and these numbers are from slaughterhouses. So this is not inclusive of on-farm slaughter or meat taken to a private butcher. This is just to licensed slaughterhouses. Meat chickens, 747,506,691 meat chickens every year. 20% of that goes in the garbage. Turkey, 19,804,087. 20% of them go in the garbage. Ducks and geese, which this number is a little bit smaller for obvious reasons. Ducks because it tastes like shit, but 6,861,063. Pigs, 21,404,799. Cattle, 3,160,734. Sheep and lambs, 491,146. For some reason, lamb hasn't quite caught on here in Canada as well as it could. Bison, 9,379. I thought that number would be larger, but apparently there's not a lot of bison eaten in Canada anymore.
No,
We kind of took care of that in the 1800s.
but it's pretty good. I mean, myself, I hadn't eaten it until a few years ago, and then I found a local producer.
Rabbits even made it to the story. 6,188 rabbits. And then goats, there was no new data, so I had to get data from the previous year. 77,986 goats. Goats is a pretty popular item by comparison. I thought that would be a lower number. So those are the numbers, and then 20% of that goes in the garbage. And so when I mentioned earlier that to take a life is no small thing, but then to waste it and throw it in the garbage, this is entirely something different. And so this totals up, and this is just the slaughterhouse, the registered slaughterhouses. 799,322,073 lives that were raised on a farm, sent to an abattoir, butchered, and 20% of that just went in the garbage.
Yeah, we could all do a lot better, right? We could all.
And that's the thing.
Better.
We don't need to drive, necessarily that number down to zero. But I mean, we need to do better, right? Now, in these numbers, again, this is not private abattoirs. This is not deer and elk. Those numbers do exist, but we're not talking about the consumer market with deer and elk and things like that. Largely, the folks that are getting deer and elk done are probably not wasting any of that money or that meat, right? Maybe there's a little bit that goes to waste, but largely, if you got to put in a $2,000 rifle in your tags and $7,000 worth of camo and
Countless hours driving around the county roads, so
$400 worth of deep woods every year and whatever,
$2,000 fuel bill.
yeah, and a mossy oak steering wheel cover, you're probably not gonna want to waste too much of that meat, right? So, but anyway, so that's what the number is, right? It's like right on the cusp of 800 million animals that get butchered every year, and 20% of that just gone, right? Fruits and vegetables. Now, I said earlier, that's 45%. 45% of fruits and vegetables that hits the grocery store, garbage, right? We've all talked about the lettuce that we buy at Costco. It wilts 3 weeks later, and then we chuck it, right? That's 644 million tons of fruits and vegetables globally that gets discarded, right? That's fruit. That's not potatoes and carrots. Potatoes and carrots fall under roots and tubers. There's 275 million tons. Again, 45% of global production gets discarded. That is wild. Now, so here we got Glenn. Long night, man. You're doing good. Watching all later. Thanks, Glenn. Really, really, genuinely do.
You missed, but we did answer your question, I think, or I tried to. It wasn't probably the answer you wanted to hear, but
Yeah.
but keep up the fight, I guess.
Yeah, just
keep raising them.
Keep raising your own meat and do it for the right reason, and the dollars don't matter if you're doing it for the right reason, right? Okay, so what's one product we do produce here in Canada, fruits and vegetables wise? What's the big thing? We go to the Okanagan. What are they famous for?
Cherries and grapes.
Yeah,
Is that not it?
that's not it.
Oh shit.
What about apples?
I was gonna say apples.
How many apples do you think get thrown out every year?
They're not famous for cherries. I thought
Well, they
they'd
are
be more
famous.
famous
They
for
are famous for
cherries
cherries.
and grapes. Buddy got married at a vineyard. We didn't get
But-
married at an orchard.
But I wanted to focus on apples because,
Okay,
because
apples.
again,
How do you like them apples?
it's something we can grow here. We can grow it right here in the Peace Country. But globally, again, talk about insurmountable, just incomprehensible numbers. 3.7 trillion apples are discarded annually. So I forget who it was that had the question about the pigs, but you can't tell me that you can't take, I mean, at least a couple trillion down to the hog farms.
Yeah, Jeremy was
That'd be
asking
some
that.
that'd be some pretty tasty pork, you know, apple raised pork, right? Here's a number coming out of the UK. I shared the bread one the other day because I thought that was 20 million slices of bread every day get wasted in the UK. That's a lot of toast. But 5.8 million potatoes are thrown out every day in the UK.
Potatoes do kind of suck though.
Yeah, but I mean, lots of the stuff that's getting thrown out is, you know, when you're talking about supply chain, it's just improper storage,
That's true.
improper transportation, right? Again, there's just no need for it, right? So all of this happens while, you know, our Canadian households are projected to spend $15,000 in 2022. So it was a big thing at the end of last year. The grocery prices were expected to spike from an average of $14,000 a year for a family of four to another $1,000, $15,000 a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what you could do with an extra $1,000, but if I looked at $1,000, if I just had it sitting here on the table, I probably wouldn't scrape it in the garbage can over there and be like, God damn, that's expensive.
No, that's it, right? And I mean, even at $1,000, I kind of find that I find that so low because when you're walking through the supermarket and you got just the top part where the kid sits and that's full, and you go to ring up that up and it's like $160, and you just you know you leave and you got like 2 handfuls of things, and you're thinking like, whew. Because I'll say when we shop, we don't actually buy a lot of like dumb shit. We're not, we have our own meat. We have lots of our own canning, so it's just a few trinkets. And every time I go, I think like, what's everybody else doing that doesn't have any of this? Or they don't think they have these.
You gotta
options.
wonder, eh? Yeah.
They gotta buy everything. They gotta buy all the dairy. They gotta buy all the meat. They gotta buy all the vegetables. Then they gotta buy all the chips and the cereal and the pop. And you think like, oof, good luck.
So what's the solution? You said we're gonna solve world hunger here. And you mentioned Elon Musk earlier, and I kind of piqued my interest because he maybe said something controversial about whether the population was going up or down, but he also said something really controversial that piqued my interest a few months ago. some folks have said to him in recent history, you're the richest man alive, and I think he's got $278 billion.
Yeah, he's got enough, for sure.
And if you just took a drop of that ocean and just laid it on the table, and, I mean, you could solve world hunger. And so the number that was thrown out by, I don't know if it was the UN or who it was, I think it was the UN. They said it would take $6 million to solve world hunger. So they went to Elon and they said, you know, and this is not a joke, this actually happened. They went to Elon and they said, okay, would you be willing to put $6 billion on the table, and we're gonna solve world hunger? And so, I mean, he retorted, as he's expected to do, he's a businessman, prove to me $6 billion will solve world hunger, and I'll write you a check. So I read this report the other day, because I've done, you know, for this conversation we've already had, 3 weeks of research, you know, almost a month. I read the report that the UN put out in regards to this, and they laid out very methodically how they would feed the population of the world for a year. How they could burn $6 billion by basically giving a man a fish for 2022. Now 2023 comes around, that man doesn't know how to fish, that man doesn't know how to farm, that man is just not capable of being able to. So world hunger is gonna, you know, come 2023, it's gonna be right back, chomping at us, eating our lunch. And so I thought, well, this is a real thing. Now imagine if we invested $6 billion in community gardens. Imagine if we invested $6 billion in clean drinking water and irrigation channels for people. Imagine if we invested $6 billion in agricultural education, right? There's a lot of stuff that we could do that would actually be tangible in terms of teaching a man to fish, as opposed to just feeding him for a day. And I for as much as I think, you know, Elon lives in excess, and he's very eccentric. I gotta commend him for pushing back on that, because, you know, to just hand over $6 million and just blow it out the window and it'd be gone, and what would you be remembered for? What difference did you make in the world? You fed everybody for a day, or maybe for a year, but
Yeah.
ultimately the world didn't get any better at the end of it, right? And so I find that a little bit disgusting in terms of, you know, the UN. So when I first brought up that question about, you know, the engineer and the, you know, the biggest problem they have is they're trying to find solutions for problems that shouldn't exist, and that's what it is. We're looking at world hunger as a distribution problem, right?
Yeah.
It's not a distribution problem. It's the fact that we're holistically we're doing it wrong, right? We have a distribution system that's built on comfort and complacency and convenience, right? It's too easy for me to go to the grocery store and get stuff for next to nothing that, you know, we already know 33% of it's going to go into garbage. The other 66% of it is probably going to give me type 2 diabetes by the time I'm 45. And then I'm going to rely on, now I'm not even going to rely on the distribution system, I'm also going to rely on the healthcare system, I'm going to rely on the government, and all of these systems of reliance that we have are leading us down a very dangerous path. And I think, and I've mentioned this in previous videos too, where we're in that, you know, easy times create soft men, and soft men create hard times.
Yeah.
And we're right in that transitional year, right, where things are about to get.
Well, and that's why I say, when you watch the next generation, you know, raising up their family, I fully expect you'll see 25-year-old young male fathers starving to death in the grocery store parking lot because they can't afford the food in the grocery store and they don't know what to do. We're so disconnected from food production. It's mind-boggling, and you can see it in the almost, I would say almost zero interest in the, you know, in supporting local. I mean, it's growing now over the last 2 years, but up until then, people had no interest. Like you say, it was strictly convenience and strictly price.
Yeah.
Quality didn't matter. damage to the climate didn't matter. The economy, none of that mattered. It was convenience and price. At any cost, and now we're seeing, you're starting to read all these articles, even with high grain prices, farmers are struggling, cattle producers are struggling, pork, chicken, it's right across the board, while the shelves are, well, they were full up until a few months ago, or I guess a year ago.
Yeah, they're not full now.
So,
If anybody thinks they're gonna be full throughout 2022, I think they're very, very naive. The supply chain issues that we're currently having are not gonna go away overnight. They're not gonna go away with an election. They're not gonna go away
no.
when summer hits. That's not gonna happen.
No, and supply chain issues will only get better if we can change our mindset, where we shop properly.
So we have these 25-year-old, fathers that you think you're gonna starve to death in the parking lot. I mean, aside from the fact that, they're literally surrounded by food and they can't see wood for trees. Do you think it's a fact that we've had it easy for too long? Cause I look at it and I think, okay, well, my grandparents in both the UK and here in Canada, both sets of grandparents, lived through world wars and through massive economic downturns, like the dirty 30s, World War II, and we're the ultimate homesteaders and preppers, right? And we have generations now that have never even gone to the grocery store and even had to process the concept that what they need isn't going to be there.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it is where, my favorite brand of cheese spread or whatever type of bagels that I want aren't there. And I mean that's a minor inconvenience, but it's just the taster, it's just the tip, the cusp of perhaps where things can go here.
Well, it is. So that video, I told my dad about that he fit into the generation that had never seen hard times, and he agreed with the video. I think he even watched it, but he said the one thing that is his, like he believes his generation, they never stopped producing. So, and he jokes about it now, even here, he said, we're still building the country. Yeah. And that's why I believe that the next maybe not the next, but the next, like you said, they will have it so easy because, where maybe the 60-year-olds they didn't see the depression, they didn't see these things, but, they built.
Yeah.
They never stopped being productive. They never stopped producing.
Well, you look at any volunteer organization in North America right now, what's the average median age? 60 years old.
Well, and there you go. They're still producing, right? They're still being productive. You see it now even in local communities. The curling club dies. All these things they die. We stop doing. We don't do dances. We don't do anything, right? So yeah, we're getting to a point where we're actually we're not even disconnected just on food production where food comes from. We're even disconnected from work. Like most people, aspire for this white collar job. Blue collar jobs aren't so great. Jobs in agriculture. As far as the physical part of agriculture, you'll see lots of people up and coming, come out of college and then want to be a seed salesman or something.
Yeah.
But as far as the actual getting your hands in the dirt,
they want to be a middleman.
There's very, very few people that are interested in. We got a few guys said no. Very few people that are actually interested in getting right physically involved. Yeah. And yeah, that's why.
And that's the thing. That's what the world needs. Is the world needs somebody to do the work. Because if everybody wants to be a middleman, eventually you're going to run out of.
Yeah.
You're going to run out of people to actually supply the product.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we got 10 minutes past our previous record.
Are we really?
That's going to be enough for what? Closing thoughts?
Well, did we solve the problem? Hopefully that was necessarily. Did we solve the problem, or did we at least provide a wake up call? Again, we probably preached a lot to the choir of folks that probably already have a good understanding of this.
Well, we said that in our last video. Like the community that we have with whatever it is, it's like 1,300 or some people together.
Yeah.
they're all, yeah, I really realize you guys are all like-minded, but, you know, to get this out there to, you know, our own silent protest here of like, let's push this to the people that need to hear it, that need to see it, and, you know, maybe numbers are that shock wake-up effect to be like, oh, wow. you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, if you're an urban homesteader right now and you're battling with your municipal council in terms of whether or not you can keep backyard chickens. I mean, I could go on for days about the benefits of backyard chickens and soil conservation. And, you know, they're the ultimate, they can basically take a waste stream and turn it into a rejuvenated, high nutrient dense food stream. So if you're living in the municipality and you're having those challenges, highly encourage you to talk to your local councillors. Get that bylaw revoked or revised, right? If you're talking to your neighbors and they have green space that's just sitting there doing nothing, and you wanna do something, maybe talk to them about using some of their green space and putting raised beds in it, growing food. You know, there's a guy on YouTube, it's Curtis Stone, I think. He made a whole living off of leasing backyards for gardens and raising fruits and vegetables, selling them as a market garden. And the lease return was basically supply food for the people whose backyards he's using, right? And you can grow an incredible, you know, in an eighth of an acre in a backyard, you can grow an incredible amount of food, not only for yourself, but for your neighborhood. And, I mean, from a profitability standpoint, it is becoming trendy now. It's kind of gathering some legs, but don't let it be a firework. Don't let it just go and then fizzle out and something else become, you know, the next big hit, right? This is something that needs to really grow some legs and go somewhere. Get the victory garden going again, right? We look at, and this is not to get too political, but we look at countries like China right now. What is China doing? Whether you agree with their political ideologies or not, China has, over the last few years, has been gathering resources in terms of, they've been accused of hoarding resources so much, and they've even told their own population, even though they own like 80% of the world's grain supply, or 90% of the world's grain supply, they're even telling their own population that they should prepare for and stock up on food supply, right? So,
My dad and mom, they went to China before the pandemic, a couple of years before that, and he told me stories of his trip. He said the resounding, the comment that he got from most of the people that he talked to there, that told him, he said, we starved to death in our lifetime, and it was around the 50s or the 60s, and he said, we didn't even know about this happening. So when you said this generation alive here in the West hasn't seen hard times, they did. They starved to death in recent history. And they actually, when he said they were on one tour, and they actually explained what dirt does to the human body, because they were eating dirt. They know what it does.
Yeah.
And they said, we will never starve again.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing massive forethought. While the rest of us are tearing down our infrastructure, tearing down our elevators, paving over our farmland, doing the most appalling first world garbage nonsense that you could ever imagine doing. We're doing that, and we're proud of it.
Yeah.
The rest of the world that knows, that has real experiences with this, are saying, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So whether you agree with them politically or ideologically or not, you do have to use them as a barometer in terms of identifying what's about to happen, because they've been through it in recent history, more than once. And when the Chinese Communist government starts saying, gather your own resources and start stockpiling, which is unheard of in any communist nation. Oh, you should have some stuff for yourself. That's time for the ears to prick up and think, something big's about to happen, right? And so 2022, you maybe didn't hear it here first, but I'm definitely forecasting food shortages, extreme weather. Well, we know that's gonna happen, right? There's gonna be a volcano somewhere.
It's like if you ever played The Sims and you went up top and you said, give me everything, That's
I
2022.
never played that. Was it good? Did it win an Academy Award or?
Well, I don't know, it was around, it was a thing, they played it in school. Sim City thing.
I had a very sheltered.
Yeah, you
childhood,
did, so,
Yeah.
but,
I was cultured, but not
no.
exposed.
Well, there was an option to add all the floods and everything that could befall a city.
Yeah.
And then when just 5 minutes before computer class was over, you'd click that button and Godzilla would come and rip everything down. That's 2022 in a
That's
nutshell.
what's gonna happen, yeah. It's 2022. The world fell
That's it.
apart again.
That should have been the button.
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah, well, you know when they make like a Tiger King 2, that it's just gonna be a shit show. Have you watched that yet?
I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't.
You
No.
should.
I'll have a look.
You know you don't have the spare time to do it, but I think you would laugh just to be like.
I'm too busy watching Kirkfell Farms.
'Cause it
videos.
was funny because I watched it initially over the however many weeks. And I thought, man, this is wild. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, this is wild. Like I just can't believe the lifestyle this person had and everything, all the escapades. And then I watched a couple episodes at the end of last year, and I'm like, oh yeah, some tiger and shit, and a little bit of meth, and you know, some gay marriage, and I mean that's not that strange, right? And it you know, as crazy as the last 2 years have been, it was strange to go back and look at that, and that seemed somewhat normal, right? It's not normal. That's messed up.
Our new norm.
But the new normal is certainly not one that, you know, I fear for our kids because what we think is still weird and abnormal, and that is normal to them, right? That's the only world they've ever known.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm really struggling to keep this thing going.
Well, we hammered them back though. That took
It's
us
funny,
took us an hour because we started these at an hour, and it's been an hour
Yeah,
and 10
I
minutes.
told the guy at the
Or
cigar
20
store
minutes.
we were 2 hours, and this is what he recommended, and yeah,
If we would have started him right off the bat, he would have been right.
yeah.
So kudos to whoever actually said that was a gem shop or something.
Yeah, the Cedar Gems in South 40 Shopping Center in Grand Prairie. So if you're ever stopping by there, there's a gentleman there. He can take you inside the humidity controlled room and
Tell you exactly how many hours you need to
Yeah.
smoke this cigar.
yeah, they
Probably what topic you need to be
got- they got
discussing while you
They
smoke
got
it.
some cigars in there that look like they should be firewood, but
That's funny.
yeah, anything, whatever you want to spend, they got it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, well that's all I had.
I
So-
think I think we're gonna leave it at that.
So, thank you very much to everybody for tuning in here this evening, and if you did miss a piece of it, it'll all be uploaded, be able to go back in and watch it here in the next day or two.
Absolutely, yeah, we got a little bit of work to do. We had the phone going here for one, stuff wasn't popping up the way we thought it would, but we'll get it.
Probably run out and buy $1,000 laptop.
Absolutely, because this is,
Yeah, with a 50 megapixel camera or something like that, and we'll set the lighting and
absolutely,
We'll get it.
absolutely, that's the best way. Go
leather bound books in the background instead of this
2 feet in.
dirty old broke down tractor.
Oh, I like this. Somebody didn't comment right off the start why it was so dark, but it doesn't seem like that on our end. Oh, we got another one there. So, but yeah, so everyone,
Skittles, yeah, a new subscriber actually just started watching Farm. This person just asked me today, what they should do to prepare for, you know, when it hits the fan kind of thing, and so I'd answered that as, you know, we really gotta understand why it's hitting, is it hitting the fan because of a natural disaster, or is it hitting the fan because of some political thing unraveling, and that's where you really make that equation as whether or not you're just going to a safe place or you're heading to the hills kind of thing. So really appreciate, you know, the new subscribers we've had, and if there's anybody that's watching that hasn't subscribed yet, this would be a really good time, because this is not gonna be the last one we do of these by any means.
oh no, absolutely not.
Smash the like button. We also have regular content that we put out from our individual farms. So Bloom Family Farm or Kirkfell Farm, look us up on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, like this video, share this video, and as always, leave us a comment in the comment section if you got questions. We'll come back. If you got something that you want us to present on in the future video, that would be awesome too, because I think we've only got so many ideas too.
We got a lot though.
We do have a lot of ideas.
But yeah, everything you got to say, comments or suggestions were
It's
definitely.
always good to get other people's perspective. Right?
It makes it, yeah, it's quite a bit better when you can get some interaction going, for sure. We'll figure out the comment thing here, popping up on these screens a little bit different.
Yeah, we'll stream.
And then, to be honest, in 2 weeks, it'll be the same. But, all right, so everyone, thank you very much for watching tonight. We got 20 minutes longer than our first one, so, that's perfect.
Yeah,
It's
I think
awesome.
we've got, the rest of the bottle of Scotch to finish here, so.
Absolutely.
As always, drink responsibly. And
We'll see you
We'll
guys
see you
all in the
next
next one. We gotta figure out how to turn them off.